I do actually remember. I came from Mackay to come down for an interview for the job. I got requested to have a look, and I walked onto the stage, and it was still in construction mode, but around about 85%. And I looked up from that stage and looked up into the auditorium and went, oh yeah, I could handle this. This looks pretty cool. And my history as a carpenter and my love of Art Deco and that sort of thing, it was there's an easy decision to make here. Certainly the most beautiful theatre I've worked in, but I've seen a lot of them, and there's not many that match the Empire, and I'm talking around the whole of Australia. I certainly would go, at a level in Queensland, it's the best theatre in the country, and the best theatre in Queensland by a country mile, and I'm including QPAC. And so, that part of it is great. The fact that this has a history in this community from 1911 on till now, and it's checkered, but it's a wonderful thing to be able to walk into. I walked on stage and looked out and went, yes, I can work here. And we've had so many people walk out on stage and go, oh, wow. From all over the world.
Were you aware when you got the job here? Did they prep you and say, this may seem like any other job, but be aware that at the moment there's a bit of a storm happening. Should they have spent the money? Did they waste the money? Is this council going to get voted out because of that? It was this political nightmare. Were you aware of all that sort of undercurrent?
Not at all. When I actually started the job, it was 2 weeks before opening, so that was kind of the beginning of June. Even by then, the first manager of the theatre had gone, and that was Bob Peet. He'd been brought in as the new manager of the Empire Theatre, but I think after the election, Bob just went, I'm out. So at the time, Kerry O'Rourke was the first manager, and that was who I worked with. And at the time also, we were a business unit of council, which got changed in 1999.
So how did that make things different?
For Toowoomba, how it worked, as a business unit of council in 1997, it was really, really open to political interference. And 1998 was a pretty rubbish year in my working life, because at the time there was really no support inside council, and the new councillors who'd all sort of come into the role, the Empire Theatre being a complete waste of money. And even, Tony Burke was the mayor, Di Thorley, that was the first time that she was elected. And I had a chat to Tony in the green room a few months after they opened. I said, mate, you were elected, you could support it now. And he went, oh no, Kerry, I can't do that. And I went, oh, okay, whatever.
So a lot of it was just image, can't be seen to be endorsing anything to do with this bomb, really.
Well, potentially that's the case, but I don't know the overall history. I know that at the time there was some conversation later that I learned that at the time the council was still paying off both of the dams, and they'd just done Milne Bay, so there was a fairly high infrastructure cost. So there would, the alternative to owning this one was building a concrete block thing over by the City Hall. And thank heavens they didn't. And the great kudos to Ross Miller and the council that did actually make those decisions, that this would have been an enormous loss for our community if it had been knocked down and turned into an apartment block or whatever it might have ended up.
But slowly and surely, as time went on, the councillors and the naysayers out in the community gradually changed their tune and came to not only love the Empire Theatre, but to understand what a community asset it had really become.
I think one of the things, kind of a little bit back from there, is probably when some of our teachers got together and created Sing Out. And Sing Out was very early on, and it was after, I think it was, by the time we opened Sing Out, Di Thorley was mayor. And I had a conversation with Di Thorley in Queen's Park once, and she told me she'd rather give a metre of gravel to the guide hut than give us any money. And I went, well, okay, you have your opinion, I have mine. And Di was of the opinion that the theatre was about the upper echelon of society. And so, she just went Penguin Suits Theatre, that's where it is. Right. And of course, then she was asked to open a Sing Out, and we had on this stage, for the first Sing Out, we had something like 600 people on stage, 600 young people on this massive scaffold, which I get nervous thinking about these days, but
might not tick all the boxes.
No, not any longer. And she was asked to open it, and she got off the stage and she said, oh, I get it. Right. It's not for those people. No. And to his credit, Peter Swanell, who was the chairman of the board by then, and got in Di's ear, and I think that really was a moment Around that time was like there was a change in attitude and support. We just went, well, let's get the shows on, let's get it on stage. And, we didn't muck around in that first period of time. We had hunters and collectors and the really big bands were coming in and Screaming Jets. We got into all sorts of trouble with Screaming Jets because they were crowd surfing off the front of the stage. So that kind of, for us, it was making sure that when the people came in, what they saw was something they went away with and went, oh, we really enjoyed that. And it was great. I used to go to a chiropractor on Campbell Street and I'd be getting beaten up and he'd say, well, why, the Empire Theatre's a complete waste of money. And I went and saw him for a couple of years and I said, have you changed your tune yet? And he went, no. And I went, yeah. At the end of the day, I think today, and it's for people who come to the city and who come and live here. I kind of take note of Peter Locke, who's the CEO of Heritage Bank. Yep. And he came from Adelaide to here with his wife, and they both like Art Deco and they both like theatre. And I know that Peter said to me, it was one of the things that we went, there are some things in Toowoomba that we can go, oh, look, we don't have to go away to experience some of the culture that we're used to. And today, of course, we stick 130,000 people through a year and maybe a bit more than that. And as I was saying earlier, this week we've got schools musicals in the theatre and in the Armitage Centre next door. And it's about our next generation who are experiencing live, and being part of it.
Of course, there's very little doubt that the renovation of the historic theatre, creating foyer areas and an entirely new backstage area, which includes a studio theatre and dressing rooms and a new fly tower, has turned a lovely old performance space into an absolute masterpiece.
From the back of the proscenium arch backwards is brand new. And of course, the old theatre, a lot of the exit to the old theatre was just outside. The foyers just didn't exist. There were walkways and things like that. But the front, the central part of the front of the theatre, for those that know it, when you come through the main doors, not much has actually changed. And in fact, the very first entry is really 1933, even down to the goldfish tanks. Oh, right, and I was learning about it only yesterday, would you believe? Because we've had one that was leaking. And the guy who looks after our goldfish tank now is the same guy who refurbished them in 1997 for the theatre. So they're original. They're actually from somewhere back in the 30s, 40s and 50s. So the glass is new, but the fish have changed. And every now and then a patron points out that one stopped swimming.
The Empire Theatre has given Kerry Saul 26 years of incredible job satisfaction, but it also made sure that he crossed paths with Alison Villette, who he'd eventually marry.
Well, Alison was actually working here as a casual front of house manager, and within those first couple of years, and eventually she had quite a large family. She had 6 children. I said, well, there's no chance of us ever getting it together, but it turned out to be not the case. So we did end up together about 1999, I think, and never looked back. Right. And Al's experience was in musical theatre as well as dance, and I encouraged her to moved from the bag and tile shop to the dance studio and create a decent dance studio. And she did a couple of choreographic roles with the theatre. Cabaret was one of those, and then did a few directing roles. And she's worked around the world. It's not like it was any surprise that she knows what she's doing.
No, that's right. The Empire Theatre, under Kerry's managership, has planted the seed and then nurtured into life an enormous number of careers in the creative arts.
We have done through Homegrown and through our major productions and through our youth arts, brought in a skill set into the community that for the young ones, they come through and they're performing and creating their own companies. For the older ones, they got a level of skill that enabled them to go back out into the community and create their own works. And, not just the theatre, but we got a call the other day, or an email the other day, from a bloke by the name of Jack Best, who was an electrician here, and he walked in and went, I want to dance. And that's 4 or 5 years ago, and he's just been accepted into it's a European ballet company. And you kind of go, that's what this place encourages. It says it's okay to be an artist. It's okay to be a dancer. And we've got people around the world who've been on the stage here, who are making their living in the art. It's wonderful.
Tell me, when artists come through, there must be some that are particularly memorable, not so much for their performance, but what they demand or what they're like backstage and during sound check and rehearsal. Any come to mind that you can reveal?
I don't think we've ever had artists that you kind of go, I really don't want you to come back again. Right. There are some interesting writers, and generally speaking, they tend not to be the high-profile artists, so the mid-range ones. Yeah, right, okay. I want everything.
Bit like too big for their boots.
A little bit. Well, I shouldn't say that because they've probably got every right to be that way. But sometimes the writers, you kind of go, really, do you need that? Then you have the other side of the coin when someone says, oh, well, I want a 6-pack of water and can I have a towel, please? I don't think really that we've had too many that you kind of go, oh, gee, we don't want you back. Technically, one of the Emmanuel brothers was just really, really loud on stage, which was Phil, just deaf, man. Yeah. And so it's really, really difficult to deal with that with an audience because you just can't get the sound down low enough. But, really, it's a credit also to the venue and the staff that this is such an easy stage to work and we've got such good staff. It kind of relaxes them, and especially if they've been here before. So someone like Jimmy Barnes, who's been here a few times, he just rocks in and goes, hi guys, and they know that it's going to be fine. Yeah.
As general manager, it seems like a great job for anyone who loves live performance of any sort, but are there nights where you just think, I don't want to see another show, I just want to go home and binge watch something like regular people?
Well, I guess that I see a lot less shows than people might think I have seen. Right. But it's really difficult. And there are two things. If I really want to see something, you've really got to take yourself out of your role and go, I'm buying a seat, I'm going to sit in it and I want to see what I'm seeing. Because otherwise you're looking around, you're going, what are the ushers up to? What's that technical guy doing? Why is this happening? And so, probably the high points of those seated moments are actually the opening nights of our major productions, when you just go, there's been so much blood, sweat and tears going for your entire crew, your entire team, the marketing, the ticketing, everything. And you watch it and you kind of go, that was just amazing. And even when there's so many times you get a response from someone that says, that's the best show you've ever done. And we've done that every year for 20 years. And there's been a couple of absolute doozies that I've just want to go. Tim mentioned one the other week when we did Cabaret. And the opening night of Cabaret, and for those who don't know Cabaret, it's a beautiful musical, but it doesn't end well. Right. Basically, everybody ends up getting gassed in a gas chamber. Right. So,
not a good thing to leave the theatre on, is it?
Well, you wouldn't have thought so. No. But we did it. We played it that way. So the show ended in total silence. And the audience were just sitting there. It was like, nothing. Wow. Gee. And then they cheered. But it's still, for me and obviously for Tim, it's one of those moments you kind of go, that was right. That's how it should have been. We didn't sell a lot of tickets for that show, I might add, in comparison, but I still rate it as probably the best of the musicals that we've done because it just had such power. It's making it possible. Yep. And I can't remember what Peter Swannell used to say, but it was like, that's our job. We make it possible for people to create the art, even if we're not creating it ourselves.
So for now, for Kerry and Alison, it's a long holiday in Africa, followed by a move up north for those two self-confessed lovers of the tropics, to a new home on Magnetic Island, just off Townsville, an island that does have its own theatre, should the yearning for the stage return. But Kerry is certain that in his time as General Manager of Toowoomba's Empire Theatre Complex, he's helped create an entity that has risen above its rocky rebirth to be absolutely treasured and valued by the community it serves.
I don't know. I guess that, the time here has been wonderful. The people here have been great. There's been so much support in our community for the theatre over the years, and it's nice to be recognised. And it's not often you get to go out, if you like, on the top of your game. And certainly we've been having a great year, and I don't envy the next 12-month period if the interest rates continue to rise, and there'll be some challenges. But we have a place in the community that in 1997 it wasn't there, and now it is. And I don't believe that will go ever. The Empire is back in a place, we call it the icon of the city, or the jewel in the crown. I think for Barry Burnoth to say to me, and this is kind of the change from 1997 when people were going, oh, what is it? To Barry last year going, the art's heart of the city beats out of the Empire Theatre.
Right, yeah.
And I thought, wow, yeah.
Back then, could you see that it ever would be?
Oh, yeah. I guess yes, because we were just going, look, people will come to shows. We know they will. And while the commitment to the theatre had happened 2 or 3 years earlier because they had to build the thing, we came in when it was being built, when it was done. And even though, there was a lot of division at the time, it was never going to go away.
No.
So you would have been really hard-pressed to close it down 6 years later. So once it was established and people were starting to come again, and of course, it's just the most beautiful room. So as long as you run it well, people are going to come and see it. I think in hindsight, it was disappointing from a community perspective that those decisions were made around political decisions were encountered during that period of time, and the Empire Theatre was part of that. But it is still and will be part of our community until it falls down or burns down again. I don't know. But let's hope it doesn't.
Yeah, touch wood.
Yeah, yeah. And because it has such history, from 1911 through to 1970, it was a part of so much of the community. And we still get people walking in here and going, oh, I remember when. And I know people from out of our city who've been in Toowoomba who were there when they were 20 or 15 or 10 or whatever. Yeah. And then from 97 on, with that change where we've created a whole new group of people in the city who just think this has always been here.
Yeah.
And what a great place to go.